Here Comes Rachel is the name of this, and here, forget everything I said just a moment ago. I just wanted to share that with you, because we'll get into that a little deeper some other time. We're going to start this off. Basically, we're continuing remember, here we had Esau, and we had Jacob, and we had the father who was Isaac, and Jacob stole the blessing away from Isaac. And we understand that this is the left hemisphere of the brain, that this is the carnal side, this is the divine side. And when the two start struggling with one another, as they do within our minds, Rebecca, who is the spirit, cautions the right side to flee into the wilderness. In other words, we have to take ourselves, that's child of promise, and go into meditation. And that's where we left it off last week. Jacob had left, so the right side had separated from the left side. The right side now was now moving into the area of divine consciousness, separating itself from the carnal side, and it's an aspect of meditation. And what we have here is that Jacob will be searching for a wife. In other words, as we bring ourselves into a religious feeling, we bring ourselves into a spiritual feeling, we're going to now seek within ourselves to a communion, so to speak, with the divine essence within us, which would be the spiritual essence, the emotional essence. Jacob went on his journey. Look at Genesis chapter 29 on page 24. Okay, Genesis chapter 29, page 24, and verse 1. And we're going to see something that's very interesting here and very surprising. There's a big surprise in this thing. And it comes down to where we're all at. Genesis chapter 29, verse 1. Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. See? This is the child of promise. This is that which is within us, which is moving away from the left side, moving away from the carnal side, moving to that point within inside of us, which is the creation, the universal creation. Okay? Everything that's going on, everything that's happening in the world today, sometimes it gets me so frustrated, even if I see an empty seat, or if I get so frustrated if I see people don't understand. You have this mammoth earthquake in Japan. You have these tremendous floods, and it just seems like nature is on a rampage, which is prophesied years ago, because Uranus is the dominating factor in this age. And when Uranus is the dominating factor of this age, this is going to happen. If you're going to have an earthquake, if Uranus is dominating, it's going to be a Lulu. So it doesn't take anybody to prophesy these things hundreds of years ago. All they had to know is, when is Uranus going to be in a position? The reality of this stuff that I'm talking about now, it transcends anything spiritual. It transcends, you can sit and you can meditate, but unless you realize that you're part of this universe, which is in the throes of this tremendous change, it's not doing anything for you. But everybody is in a place of change within themselves, and this struggle is just like it's shown in this struggle between Esau and Jacob. This struggle is going on within each one of you. Trying to deal with yourself from the old traditional way, from the old concepts, and then trying to understand that which is this new thing that something is touching you. Even trying to understand, to get people to look at crop circles, things carved in the wheat that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Right where it said it would happen, right in the wheat, right in the corn, are these mystical symbols. All of a sudden, and in spite of all of the shows that they're on television, there's not one time that they stop to look at the symbol and say, what does it mean? Because they mean something. The geometry of these things, the geometric thing, they mean something. They're saying something. Okay. So it says here that Jacob goes to the east, which means you start to pull yourself to that right side. Because you've got to stay away from Esau. See? This is the left side. This is the side. This is the carnal side, if you would. Esau. It's important. It's an important part of your life. I mean, what good is having a spirit if you don't have a physical realm? So it's important. But this is the divine side, and now you've got to start to pay attention to that. You never paid attention to it before. So Jacob's got to head east, which means you've got to head to the right side, which means you've got to get into meditation. See? And he's seeking a wife. Which that means you have to involve yourself in the divine emotions. You have to evolve yourself in that which is the emotional nature, which is born out of the spirit, born out of the right side. And look what it says in Genesis chapter 29, verse 2 on page 24. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field. See, here in the east, in the right side, he finds a well. The child of promise comes to the well, and the well is the place of water. And the water is hidden deep within the earth. Deep within the right side, there's this place of truth. Or think of what your questions are. Think of what it is that has concerned you. Think of what it is that gnaws at you right now. There is a truth, and it doesn't come by somebody else telling you what the truth is. It doesn't come by somebody reading a book to you. It doesn't come by somebody reading your palm. It comes by you going to the well. Inside, there's somebody who can tell you what about your life. So he comes to this place of the well. And see, this is the understand. Remember, this comes out. Most of this comes out of Greek mythology. That place of water is the second stage of consciousness, which is reached by meditation. You elevate yourself above the earth, which is the first stage, to the second stage, which is the water. So here it says, as you turn to the right, as you turn your meditation to the right side, you come to this place of truth, which is buried deep within the mind. Now, what I want to show you is a form of resurrection. This is what's so beautiful about this. When you come into meditation, and you may sit on the floor, you're not going down, you're going up. You're going to that point of the death of that which is the physical, so there can be a new resurrection. Something magnificent is going to happen here. And I want to show you this. I want you to first of all, we know that Jesus was in the tomb 3 days. Okay? And we understand that. And of course, we know that the sun is in the tomb 3 days, which is the winter solstice. And we understand that. We understand that all of this stuff plugs itself together as one entity. Now look on page 24, and I want to show you something. We've come to the well. Genesis chapter 29. Look at verse 2. How many flocks of sheep are there? It's very important we get that number in here. There are 3 flocks of sheep. That number 3 right there says there's going to be a resurrection. That number 3 right there says new life is going to be involving here. That's why the number is there. There was nobody there counting the sheep. Who was out there writing all this? Did they have a computer? Who's writing all this stuff down here? Nobody's there. Don't you understand? Somebody sits, and from a mystical place, all of this stuff pours forth. Do you realize that all of the stuff in the New Testament about Jesus' adventures were written about 100 years after he was supposed to by some people in Greece that nobody knows who their names are? Who wrote it all? There was no Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. See, those names were plugged onto those Gospels. They didn't exist. There were people in Greece that wrote this. Who are these Greeks that wrote this stuff? Nobody knows. See, but they were eyewitnesses. And did you ever notice? Everything is down to what he said, what he did, where he said. Even when Jesus goes off into the thing alone, it says what he said to himself. And who said there's a secretary following him around? Wait a minute, let me get that. How could this be? So what are we looking at? We're looking at something that is of a divine essence. See, the point that's so beautiful about this, that this is all provable because it's all built around this science of numbers and circles and beautiful things. But here you're going to see this resurrection. So there are 3 flocks of sheep. The water, which is the truth. Okay? Now watch what it says in Genesis 2. And behold, Genesis 29:2. And he looked and behold a well in the field, and there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks. Watch this now. And a great stone was upon the well's mouth. Okay? In John 4:10 it says Jesus is at the well. And he gives the living water. But look what it says on page 875, real quick. Just go there and look at John chapter 10. Keep your finger where we are, though, but just go John chapter 10. Look what it says in verse 11. I am the good shepherd. So in other words, he who is going to give water is going to water the sheep. See? The water is going to come out of this deep place. And let's go back to Genesis 29:2 now, where we were at in page 24. We see the well, we see the water, and we see the sheep, and we're going to compare that to Jesus. Jesus is at the well. You remember the woman at the well? Jesus gives the living water, and he is the shepherd. And now here we are in Genesis 29, and we see 3 flocks of sheep, okay, lying at the place of the well, waiting for the water, but somebody has to move the stone. Look at Genesis 29:2, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. See? Now look at Genesis 29:3, right where you are. And there were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the sheep. Hey, did you see what it said? And they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and they watered the sheep. Now, just keep your finger there. But I want you to see something. See, go to page 807. Go to page 807. Look at Matthew, chapter 27, on page 807. Matthew, chapter 27, and look at verse 60. And he laid it in his new tomb, which he had hewn out of the rock, and they rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre. Now look at Matthew 28. Okay, just a few verses away. Matthew 28:2. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. When the stone is moved, the Christ brings forth to the flock that which is truth. When the stone is moved, the water flows, and you begin to understand. Because you're the sheep. And the water is the truth deep within you. But the water cannot come forth and water the sheep unless the stone is moved. Listen to me now. Kundalini, which is the energy that rises in meditation from the base of the spine, moves the pineal stone. And when that happens, the water comes forth, that which is truth comes forth and brings you enlightenment. And that's the movement to the right side. But you're never, ever going to understand this. You're never, ever going to understand yourself. You're never, ever going to understand what life has for you. You're never going to understand what you should do or what you shouldn't do. You're never, ever going to understand it in this complex universe unless you get to the well and touch the stone so the water can come and give you drink. It doesn't make any difference who you talk to. It doesn't make any difference what songs you sing. It does not make any difference what books you read. It does not make any difference how many lectures you attend. If the stone is stayed at the point of the well, the water cannot get to you, and you cannot get to it. It's just that simple. And so here, then, remember, we have Jacob. And Jacob is that point of us which is struggling to find the truth. Jacob is that point of us which is struggling to find something within. He's trying to find Rachel. He's trying to find a wife. He's trying to attach himself to the feminine principle of God, as we all are, as we drive towards this right side. And he comes to this place, but there's a stone upon the well. And who is he trying to find? He's trying to find Rachel, who is the daughter of Laban, and Laban means white. The desires of that which come from the virgin consciousness is what each one of us are seeking. Because aren't you trying to find? Aren't you sick of trying to figure out what the heck's going on? Aren't you trying? Don't you want to know? I mean, for God Almighty's sakes, people, there are beings coming down to the earth and carving signs in the wheat for you to look at. And nobody believes it. Where are they coming from? And the signs are all the signs of the ancient mystics of Babylon and Greece and Egypt, and saying, here, for God's sakes, I'll carve it in the wheat. Look at it. Well, I don't think that means anything. My Bible doesn't tell me about that. I'll ask the pastor. The pastor says, stay away from sin. What the hell?
They were afraid.
So God would say, if I came down and I carved it in the earth, like you carve a sign on a tree, John loves Mary, I'll carve it in the earth. They say, you won't even look at it. And when you look at it, you'll get somebody to say, well, there's spaceships and all this cockamamie stuff. So we're moving to this white stone. That's what it is. It is the white stone. It is the pineal gland of the brain. It doesn't make any difference who you are. It doesn't make any difference how religious you are. Do you know what? You have a pineal gland in your brain. And that's the stone. And you know what? That is the stone that the builders rejected, which turned out to be the corner, the most important stone of all. And it only moves when you meditate. Oh, yes, it moves when you're asleep, but I'm talking about when you are awake to be attentive. It only moves when you meditate. Otherwise, it doesn't make any difference who tells you what, who advises you what. There is a stone in front of that well. Now, go to page 1003 and look at Revelation 2. Page 1003, Revelation 2. And I want you to look at verse 17. And this is Jehoshua, the voice of the Christ that is speaking, and great occult mysteries giving to him by some guy sitting somewhere under the influences of the gods of Greece and all the mythology and the occultness. And he says in the second sentence, to him that overcomes will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone. And the stone, a new name, which no man knows, saying, he that receives it. Do you know? In other words, it's yours. It doesn't belong to Catholics, Baptists, Methodists, Buddhists, Hindus, Muhammad. It belongs to you. And nobody else understands. And nobody else has to understand. There's your stone. There's there's where you find out what your life is about and what you're supposed to do. Now, Rachel is the daughter of Laban. Rachel is the daughter of Laban. The daughter means desires. Laban means white. Rachel is the desires of that which is pure. Rachel is that which is the desires of that which is the divine part of you. You have a right side and you have a left side. You can sit here and you can stare at me till the cows come home, but unless you're willing to pay enough attention to yourself to exercise this thing, forget it. There's nothing, what can I say? I can't do anything. It is none of my business what you do. And I'm not saying anything because you do not have to come here to do it. You can do it on the toilet. It doesn't make any difference where you do it. You can do it under a car, under a tree. You can do it in your cellar. You can do it in bed, under the bed. I don't really care. You can go climb in the doghouse. It doesn't make any difference where you do. It is none of my business. But you do what you must, or you can go through this earth and that stone is stuck and there's no water coming out, and you will never understand what you're supposed to be doing. Never. It just won't work. It will not work. And you could say, well, you know, my religion doesn't believe in eating. Well, then don't. And it doesn't make any difference. You never have to eat, but you'll die. And in the same way here, spiritually, emotionally, with your purpose in life and your purpose for what you're doing, you'll never, ever understand unless you move that stone. And what does Rachel mean? The word Rachel, you know what Rachel is? The word Rachel means ewe, E-W-E. You know what that is? The female sheep. Rachel is a female sheep. Laban means the mind. So the spiritual desire, Rachel, is born out of that divine consciousness which is latent. And look what it says back on page 24, Genesis 29, verse 6. And they said, he is well, and behold, Rachel, his daughter, comes with the sheep. Rachel, his daughter, comes with the sheep. And now you look and you stand and you see. And you see what can be yours. Now Rachel is that which is within you. Rachel is a possibility of that which is within you. So you begin to understand. Are you willing to spend the time? Are you willing to put the effort? Are you willing to make Rachel yours? Are you willing to embrace this, which is that feminine child of promise? Are you willing to embrace this which dwells within you, which will open to you this new child? But remember something, and I want to show it to you in the very next verse, Genesis 29, verse 7. And they said, yet it is high day, neither it is time the cattle should be gathered together. Water the sheep and go and feed them. Read that again. Water the sheep and go and feed them. And they said, we can't until all the flocks be gathered together and they roll the stone from the well's mouth. Then we water the sheep. You know what your sheep are? Your thoughts. And until you bring all of your thoughts together to that well in meditation, there's nothing that can be done. Till you bring all of your thoughts together in that meditation and that stone is rolled away. That's what these stories are. Folks, Uranus is spinning this earth in a mighty, violent way. You better start flowing in harmony with it. Folks, there are beings of light, and beings of light are not people that run around glowing in the dark. Beings of light are people that communicate with those who are in light. And do you know who they are? And I'll tell you this. You know them. You know them. The only difference is when you take on a body of flesh on this earth, you forget. You are made to forget. But once you see who they are, you'll remember. You know them. And they're doing this work, and they're carving things into the earth for you to see, and you understand of Uranus. And so this is up to you to say, I've got to do something about this. And if you don't want to come here and do meditation, then don't. But for God's sake, get to the well deep within inside of yourself and get that stone rolled away. Because if not, you're sitting through the most magnificent time in the universe and you're missing the whole thing. When the pineal stone moves, the water flows, and the thoughts become one with the truth from the right side. So it says in Genesis 29:9 that Rachel came with her father's sheep. And when Rachel appears, when that divine, beautiful impulse appears, when suddenly that feminine mystique with you comes alive and you see it, you feel it. You know what this means? It means you feel something inside of yourself. You feel something that you should touch inside of yourself. You know that you should change from that old way of thinking. You know that this world has been in an absolutely ugly mess, and there's something for yourself, there's something for your family, there's something for all life within you that you see now that you've got to do something. And it says in Genesis chapter 29:10, and it came to pass when Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, blah, 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 that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock. Because he saw Rachel. Have you seen Rachel? Rachel is inside of you. And Rachel stands deep in the midst of the mind. And if you close your eyes, you can see here. Off into a field by a well, there's a woman. And she's standing there and she's all garbed in white. And some people may call her the Virgin Mary. That's okay. And some people may call her Isis. And that's okay. And some people may call her whatever they want to call her. But then they called her Rachel. And she stood by the well. And when she came, they rolled the stone back and the water flowed. Now the story gets interesting, because now you know what you should do. And now you know you don't have to join any church, you don't have to join any religion, you don't have to pay any money, you don't have to go anywhere. Now you know what you have to do. It's all very personal, it's all very intimate. It's between you and the universe, between you and the God who dwells within you. But there's a lot of people that impress you, or maybe there's a lot of things that come upon you, and what happens to you and what happens to me, you don't have time. You don't have time for yourself. No matter how simple it is, and it couldn't be made any simpler, do it in your closet. Be by yourself. But how much time? Just think of it. You know, what does it take? It means flushing away from yourself all of those thoughts and sitting by that well with that strange woman dressed in white in the fields and rolling that stone. How much time does it take? Oh, God, I might have to give myself a minute. I mean, after all, I got to go to work. And after all, I got to meet so-and-so. And I can't give myself 60 seconds? Where am I going to get the time? And do you know what? Do you know what is true? Because I would say to you this much. Because I can tell you right, except for the Tuesday night that I had here, I didn't have any time. I never even thought of it last week. I was busy. I was busy. You're busy too. We're all busy getting older. We're all busy running down. We're all busy trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Nobody tells us what the hell's going on. Why is this happening? Well, Jesus. And the well is still plugged up by the stone, and the lady stands there with her arms folded, waiting for you to come. And so it says in Genesis 29, verse 13, that Laban heard that Jacob was there, and Jacob agreed to stay and work. And it said in 29:13, Jacob meets Laban. And Jacob agrees to stay and work for Laban. Now Laban has two daughters, and this is where you and I come in, folks, because this is where we screw it up. Oh, we know what we're supposed to do, all right. We know what our spiritual work is supposed to do. But Laban has two daughters. One is called Leah, and the other is called Rachel. And we know who Rachel is. And we know that's the daughter that we should meet. You know what Leah means? Think of yourself sometimes. It means weary. Weary. Tired, worn out, screwed up. Both of them come from Laban. Both of them come from God. Both of them do. But one is moved to the left. And one is part of you know what she represents? Everything, your friends, your family, the system. Even though you know you're Jacob, see? So you know what you have to do. So what you offer to do, see, is Genesis 29, verse 18. Look what it says here. Jacob loved Rachel and said to her, I will serve you 7 years. Not 6, not 5, not 8, not 10, 7. And that's the symbol of the 7 chakras. So you know that you've got to raise. Now the thing is, are you going to do it? Are you going to work for Rachel? Are you going to work at the meditation so that that kundalini raises itself up those 7 chakras so that you can embrace this woman by the well? Are you going to do it? Why is that so important? I'll serve these 7 years. Go to page 1005. 1005, Revelation chapter 5. I'll show you why it's so important. 1005, Revelation chapter 5, verse 1. This is the book of life that they who preach it haven't the slightest idea what it's talking about. This is the book of life, Revelation chapter 5, verse 1. And I saw in the right hand of him that sat on the throne, consciousness, a book written within you, and on the backside, your spine sealed with 7 seals. That's why it's important that you work for 7 years. That's what's being talked about. Work for 7 years. Oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I know that this is it. I know. You see, it's not only the Hindu religion that said this is it. It's not only the Buddhist religion that said this is it. I got news for you. Even though they don't understand it's in their book, it's in the Bible. It said this is it. And that's why it's important for me and you, because we're Western people. We live in the United States. Our whole culture is Westernized. And when we open the book and say, hey, they all said the same thing, we say, oh, wow. I will serve you 7 years. And then Genesis 29:21. Did you do it? Did you work at it? Oh, yeah, you knew it. You knew that that's what you were supposed to do. You're supposed to work at your meditation. Did you work at it? Genesis chapter 29:21, and Jacob said to Laban, hey, give me my wife, for my days were full. In other words, I know my way around here now. I'm a spiritual giant. I go and everything. Listen to me. Oh, Jesus, you're really something. Give me my wife. Genesis chapter 29:23. And it came to pass in the evening, Laban took Leah, his daughter, brought her to him, Jacob, and he went into her. He had intercourse with weary. He was so damned spiritually smart. He didn't know nothing. He didn't even know it. He thought that this was the way it should be. He thought that this is what I was doing was right. And so many of them out there are going to church, and you know what they're doing? They're laying in bed with weary. And they haven't the slightest idea who it is. They think it's the truth. They think it's the Spirit. They think it's God. See? Laban brings Leah, and he went into her. Though we are disciplined to our meditation, we intercourse with stress, we intercourse with worry, we intercourse with weary. In the darkness we do that. We don't even know, because look what it says in Genesis chapter 29:25. In Genesis chapter 29:25, and Laban said, it came to pass in the morning, it was Leah. And Jacob said, what have you done to me? I served you for Rachel. You've beguiled me. In other words, you deceived me. How many times, how long did you go to church and figure you knew what the heck was going on about spirit, and then you said, hey, I don't know anything. I've gone all this time, I've served you, church. I've gone all this time, I've served you, religion, and I don't know nothing. And you told me all of this stuff was so important. Genesis 29:25. You know what that says when you realize you're lying in bed with Leah, that you're intercoursing with her? You become enlightened. You know that you made a mistake. You know that your spiritual path has not been fulfilled, and you know that you did not do your work. You know that you were deceived, and that which deceives you is your own mind. You thought you had fulfilled your spiritual quest, but actually you were foiled by religion and you intercoursed with your own emotions. Leah! And where are you? Tossing and turning. But now, at least you realize you were fooled. It says you have beguiled me. And do you think religious leaders would fool you? You know what guile is? It means deceit. Deceit. I want to show you a statement of one of the biggest, most famous writers in the Bible. Probably the paramount writer in the New Testament. Go to page 950. Page 950. And look at 2 Corinthians chapter 12. This is the Apostle Paul. This is the guy that says, remains faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. But he makes an admission here, as he does throughout the scriptures, about himself and about his shortcomings. And you know what he says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 16? But be it so, I did not burden you. Nevertheless, being crafty, I caught you with guile. I deceived you. I deceived you. And this whole world is being deceived. His Honor the Pope just made a statement about the Buddhists. And he said, they meditate to get away from the world, but they're not getting closer to God. Doesn't he know that Jesus said the kingdom is within you? Didn't he read it? If he didn't read it, who the heck reads it? He's the Pope, and he didn't read it. Didn't he read in John 14:20 that Jesus says, at that time you'll know I am in the Father, you and me, and I in you? Didn't he read that in Luke 11:52, Jesus says, you take away the key of knowledge because you don't enter within yourself? If he didn't read it, who read it? And he's got everything. He reads everything. When he goes to the bathroom, he reads. He says, I read that. I don't know. Where is it? I don't know. I didn't see it. I don't know. And he didn't see it. Millions of people follow him. They didn't see it because he didn't see it. And so here then we finally realized we were tricked. Here then we finally realized we made a mistake. We were working, but we were working at the wrong thing. And you know what? Even you people that know about meditation, you work at everything else but. I'm not hollering, believe me, because I do the same thing. Believe me, I do the same thing. I thank God for the time that we have the organized meditation. Because when I have the organized meditation, that I discipline myself, that I have to be here because it's the only thing that keeps me. Otherwise, I wouldn't even give the minute. I wouldn't even give the minute because I'm no different. And it's tough. It's not because I don't know better. I do know better. And Jacob knew better, but he didn't work the right way. It says in Genesis 29:26, it must be not so to give the younger before the firstborn. Leah is the firstborn, see? And look what it says on page 942, and we're almost done, so just bear with me. 942 in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 46. Okay? 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 46. The Apostle Paul has, that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural, and afterward that which is spiritual. Do you know what it means? Do you know what it means? That your entire, what you thought was a spiritual journey was nothing but your own emotions. Because that which you intercoursed with was the firstborn, which is the physical, your own emotional nature. You thought it was something special. So our experience we felt was spiritual, was religious. Our intercourse was with the left side, was with the mind. We were deceived by religion. We were deceived by ourselves. And you deceive yourself and I deceive myself because you don't have time. Everything in the world is more important than this. Surely it is, because it's nothing. Not realizing that nothing is everything. And your mind, if you could look inside of it, is like a cauldron, and it's bubbling like a witch's brew, blah, 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 spilling over the side with all glop and glob. And that is the mess that we're trying to make sense out of. And then when you come into the meditation, there is a cool breeze that comes from the east, and it cools down that mess. And there is a time to stop, and there is a time to regroup, and there is a time to let that stone be rolled away. And when that stone is rolled away, what happens inside of you? This happened in the myth of the story. When the stone is rolled away from that well deep within inside of you, the Christ resurrects inside of you. And that then becomes the child of promise, and the government is upon his shoulder. But the stone's got to be rolled away, and the only way the stone can be rolled away is with meditation. So we come back to page 24, and we wrap this up. Genesis 29:27. We said we're going to serve another 7 years, and this time we're not deceived. You were deceived, and you know you spent your whole life serving religion. Do you know that? You went to these churches and you served your religion. And you know what you were doing? You were serving the wrong master, you were deceived, and you got Leah. You got weary, you got stressed, you got fakakta. But this time you came and you walked through the door and you said, I'm going to lift myself up. And those of you that have worked at this through this 7, to raise yourself up to those 7 chakras, it says in Genesis 29 and verse 28, and Jacob did so and fulfilled, and he gave him Rachel. He gave him Rachel. Finally, that one who was standing in the mist by the well, in that vacant field, you walk over and you embrace her because now she is yours. Well, it says in Genesis 29:30, and he went in unto her, he intercoursed, and he loved Rachel. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Rachel will not bring forth a child like this. Rachel will bring forth a child of promise. But Leah will give birth, and you will continue to intercourse, because I'll tell you something. Leah is very important. I don't know what the heck I would do if I couldn't worry about something. Gotta have Leah. Leah is there when things get too boring. I mean, I told you about Lafferty one time. I said, Frank, what's going on? Nothing. I said, what's wrong? Nothing. Everything's perfect. I said, well, what are you worried about? Because everything's perfect. I can't stand it. See, that's why we entertain ourselves with this kind of stuff. We get through life, and we are physical people, and that's half the fun. The abrasiveness and all of this is half the fun. But we don't understand the balance, and we don't understand that Rachel is our true love. And so we intercourse with Leah. And Jacob served another 7 years. So we served a total of 21 years, which equals 3. And there was new life, and there was resurrection. And Leah gives birth. And Leah gives birth in Genesis 29:32 to Reuben, and in Genesis 29:33 to Simeon, and in Genesis 29:34 to Levi, and in Genesis 29:35 to Judah. Leah gives birth to religion, the 12 tribes. Go on. Wherever you go to church, all they represent the intercourse of Jacob with Leah, the emotions. But Rachel, her womb is opened, and she gives birth to Joseph of the coat of many colors. Joseph is born of Rachel in the divine opening of the womb. And Rachel will give birth inside of you. If you will intercourse with she who stands at the well at the right side in the east, then her womb will be open. The stone will be rolled. The water will flow, which means your sheep will be fed, which means you will begin to understand. The thoughts of your mind will be lifted, and you will know. And then there will be a child born within you. And the child who is the wounded child will become the child of promise, Joseph of the coat of many colors. That's what this is about. And it's in a book, but it's in a cult book. But the glory of it is inside of you. In your mind, in your spirit, in your emotions. And you know how long you've been working and what you've been doing. And you can only say to yourself, I have failed and I have slept with Leah. And I am filled with worry and I am filled with stress. But you can get out of bed with Leah and you can rush to the well and embrace Rachel. Forget your man or woman. It has nothing to do with it. We're talking about spiritual things. And when you embrace Rachel, then you can look And all of the thoughts within your mind which are driving you crazy and killing you will be watered as the stone is rolled away by the truth. The truth! And when those thoughts are watered by the truth, then Rachel will bring forth from her barren womb that child, the child of promise, Joseph. And he is the one who controls the storehouse. And he is the one who will make you prosper and make you well and make you flow in a harmony with Uranus in this new age of light. And incidentally, remember something. When we talk about Uranus and we talk about crop circles and we talk about the earthquakes and all of this stuff, remember that Jehoshua, the Christ Jesus, said, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Didn't he? And the word for heaven in Greek is Uranus. If you read the Bible in Greek, Jesus, Jehoshua said, my friends, the kingdom of Uranus is at hand. Are you ready? And now here you sit, and you are part of it. Are you flowing with it? Are you ready? See ya. Bye.
Just a few things.